If you've attended any sessions before this one, you will know we have a little bit of housekeeping. I'm Teresa Nissen, and I'm the Director of Certification. Welcome to our Certified Lighting Designer session. You might want to set your preferences to speaker view. Up in the corner, just click on side by speaker. That might help a little bit for the presentation. And use the chat function for any technical issues or questions. And this session will be recorded so that you can go back and look at it if you need to. So this for the beginning of this presentation, we'll keep you muted. Please keep yourself muted and your cameras off. And then at the end, we'd like you to turn them all on, and hopefully we can have a discussion then with questions and answers. And this presentation was originally aired in Australia, and it's presented by David Becker of David Becker Designs and Andrew Jaques of the Flaming Beacon. And they will provide an overview of the CLD for a very short period. David's an associate IALD, a CLD, and the chair of the CLD Commission. And Andrew is a professional member of the IALD as well as a CLD. So once the recorded presentation is over, it will be followed by questions and answers handled by Rosemarie Allaire and Dawn Hollingsworth, both of whom are fellows of the IALD and they are CLDs. And Rosemarie is also vice chair of the CLD Commission. Now, before we begin the presentation, I'd like Rosemarie to say a few words.
As Teresa said, this presentation was previously aired online over the summer in Singapore and Sydney. Dawn and I thought it was a helpful and practical introduction to the CLD for you to review, and we will be taking questions after the 30-minute overview. David Becker and Andrew Jaques from Australia gave this presentation in June. And I would ask you to look out for Andrew's explanation of the process to be able to call yourself a lighting designer in 2020 versus the process to call yourself a certified lighting designer in 2020. I think he's got an interesting take and wondering what your thoughts may be. So thank you for your interest in the Certified Lighting Designer certification. And Dawn and I will be here shortly to answer your questions. Thank you.
Well, I'd like to thank everybody for joining this session. The purpose is to explain actually what CLD is all about. And I recognize that it's not a thrilling topic, but it's immensely important. And Andrew and I will do our very best to keep it short and engaging. And hopefully it will entice you to get engaged with the process. And if you like what we have to say today, there's a follow-up webinar on the 2nd of July next week. And we will take you through the process of actually doing an application. So why is CLD important? Well, all mature professions have a system of certification. It's a method of defining professional standard, and we're kidding ourselves if we think we can be different. Now, as it currently stands, anyone can say they're a lighting designer. There's absolutely no obligation to have any skill or any ability. All you need to do is get some business cards printed and say, I'm a lighting designer. And this basically says anyone can do it, therefore there's no skill. And so this is why certification is so terribly important. It seriously erodes our standing as a profession and will limit the ability of the profession to grow and have the respect that it deserves. Now, if we don't get to grip with defining competency within our own profession, like all other mature professions do, there's a real risk that others will try and define it for us. Processes and restrictions could be imposed on the practice of architectural lighting design that don't suit the way that we work. And if this were to happen, we will not have any control over the outcome. So IALD recognized that if it didn't spearhead these efforts, there may be other organizations that seek to do it and to impose restrictions over what we do. Now, I'm going to hand over to Andrew now, and he's going to talk a little bit about his experience.
Thanks, David. First, I wanted to congratulate the IALD for establishing the CLD. It's a fantastic and necessary initiative, and I'm proud to have qualified. For me, I had a growing concern that if we as the lighting design professionals don't fill the space of the so-called lighting expert, then it'll be filled for us by those whose interests are unlikely to align with our own. There's a lot of unknowns about how we as a profession will be regarded in the future, including our place in the project's consulting team. We are often positioning ourselves somewhere between being part of the creative team and also part of the technical team, in many ways not unlike the role of the architect. Not that long ago, lighting was simple and concerns such as climate change were not pressing factors they are today. Things have necessarily evolved since those days and are likely to continue to do so. One day soon, there may be need to define what a lighting expert is for all number of reasons, and this could affect the way that we do our job. For me, it's important to be part of a group that can demonstrate capability across the many complexities that make for good lighting environments, and for that group to be recognised as the most qualified to do so. I wanted to talk specifically about this idea of deserving a seat at the table. The table I'm talking about is the one shared with the lead consultants. I've spoken to many colleagues and peers, and we all have stories about architects making our life difficult. This difficulty stems from a general lack of trust in our profession. During these lighting workshops, sometimes we win the lighting arguments, but sometimes as minor consultants we lose, and sometimes we need to invest a lot of time to prove something we already know is in fact true. And the question is why? And I think the answer lies partly in our perceived level of expertise, as David has mentioned earlier. Take, for example, the process it takes to become a registered architect in Australia in 2020. Graduating from high school with good grades, the architecture student embarks on a 3-year undergraduate degree. This is followed by a gap year to experience working life in an architect's office. An extra year to travel overseas is encouraged, so the student gains first-hand experience wandering through significant international works of architecture, presumably in the hope that they will become well-rounded architects. On their return to study, they begin a 2-year postgraduate study to achieve their Masters in Architecture. Now, as a graduate, they must be able to demonstrate in a professional workplace competency across the many aspects of architectural practice. And finally, they must sit an exam with the Architecture Board, which I am reliably informed by my architecture friends is not a walk in the park. Absolute minimum time from embarking on a career in architecture to being able to call yourself an architect is 8 to 10 years. Calling yourself an architect is an achievement. Let's compare this to what is required to call yourself a lighting designer in 2020. It literally takes as long as being able to utter the words, "I am a lighting designer." No wonder we don't automatically receive or deserve respect. Let's compare this to the process to call yourself a certified lighting designer in 2020. Probably you've completed an undergraduate study in the creative field, typically 2 to 3 years. You've then probably done your postgraduate studies in lighting, which would take another 1 to 2 years. You would then find employment and work your way up to a lead role, at least 1 year, and probably many, many more. Certainly in our practice, it would be unusual to be in a lead role in less than 2 or 3 years. And finally, having obtained this level of having obtained the lead role on projects, you'll need to cover a diversity of projects over a minimum of 3 years, until finally you're able to apply for certification. This process to achieve CLD typically takes 8 to 10 years, much like that for an architect to become registered and call themselves an architect. So one of the reasons I decided to get CLD is to know demonstrably that I deserve to be at that table as an equal. I encourage everybody eligible to become certified. The more of us, the better. I'm now going to hand you back to David.
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks very much. So IALD has funded a certification program designed by lighting designers for lighting designers. Now, the point of this webinar is really to try and demystify what it is. It's a portfolio-based assessment. In fact, it's the first international portfolio-based credential for lighting designers in the world, and it's intended to align the lighting design with the same competency standards as our project colleagues work to, much as Andrew has just gone through. Why do it? Well, our profession of architectural lighting design has matured to a point where it needs to abide by the competency standards expected of all mature professions. Legitimacy, it legitimizes our industry by making it comply to the same standards as other professions. There's the risk of interference that I've touched on. It minimizes the risk of regulation being imposed on us from the outside. It informs clients and the public. It builds trust with them, and it provides distinction to designers who have achieved certification. So what is certification? Well, it's not a license. Licenses are typically territorially based, and they restrict whether you can practice a trade or not. You cannot, for instance, be an electrician without a license. This is the sort of restriction that an outside authority could impose upon us if we persist without certification. It's not a test. CLD is not a test. There's nothing to revise for. And similarly, it's not an exam. It most certainly is not an award submission. Many people, a good many people, have said that they'll apply when they've got enough award-winning projects. That's completely irrelevant for a CLD application. CLD is not an association. Now, whilst IALD funds CLD, the certification program, that's the extent of it. Achieving CLD does not mean that you are a member of IALD or any other organization. What it is, though, is a competency assessment. It's an independent measurement of competency against standardized criteria. It shows that you've been independently assessed and you've demonstrated the standards expected of a competent professional lighting designer. So, a certified lighting designer is someone who's been independently measured against a standard set of global best industry practices and principles. Someone who has attained CLD has shown through their work, through the portfolio of their work, that they satisfy the standards and principles that define what it is to be an architectural lighting designer. Now, who benefits? Well, designers definitely benefit because it establishes a standard, and this raises the awareness of our profession. And there's a quote on the right of this slide you can read, and it's from Denise Fong, who says that her benefit is that CLD sets you apart from your competition. Our clients and general public also benefit from the credibility that a credential brings because it builds trust in our profession. Jenny Gillard, local if you live in Australia, local light designer, says that her clients are engaged. She likes it because she feels her clients are engaging with a professional of the highest standard, which in turn builds confidence for her. So, who is eligible? Well, CLD is specifically for architectural lighting designers. It's for a senior designer who has practiced at a senior level for at least 3 years. The applicant must have sufficient portfolio examples to illustrate responses to questions. This means that you've got to have a minimum of 2 projects and a maximum of 4. Now, if you've been a senior light designer for 3 years, having 2 or 4, up to 4 projects isn't going to be a problem. So how does the assessment work? Well, lighting designers have to answer some questions and support their answers with examples of their work. The questions all relate to a set of domains, and the domains are essentially areas of ability. These domains were developed through extensive research and industry consultations, and they evolved to define what is required to be considered a competent architectural lighting designer. Now, this is the domains here. As you can see, there are 7 of them, and I'm not going to go through all of them, but they are all pretty self-explanatory. You have to demonstrate that you delivered the outcome or the goal of that you promise your clients. Domain 2 is a way of you have to show that you collaborated, etc., etc. They provide a standard for measuring the performance of CLD candidates, and applicants have to answer questions and show examples of their work against each domain. The CLD application is done entirely online. Now, Joe, who introduced this webinar, will be there as support, and he's somebody that you can contact if you have any difficulty with the online tool, but it's pretty straightforward. Each domain has between 2 and 3 questions, and you'll have to answer the question within 300 words. The questions they're all published in a handbook. So, very nice little document like this. There's no surprises. You can read the questions today and gather your thoughts and respond to them all in good time. You have to use examples from your portfolio to support your written responses. There's a maximum number of images that you can use to illustrate each written answer. You can use, as I said, between 2 and 4 projects to support your answers, and projects must be from at least 2 different types of work. For example, you can't just show residential work or just retail. You have to show another type of project. And the work must show interior and exterior experience, but it's not necessary to show both in each domain. You just have to show interior and exterior once. And you must submit a letter from your client or from somebody else in authority to show that you were the senior lighting designer on the projects that you've used. Once you've completed your application, professional members of the IALD and other approved lighting design associations pay a reduced fee of $525 US, and all others pay $625. Now that's a one-off fee for certification. Beyond that, as with every certification program, you must recertify every so often, and with CLD it's every 5 years, which is pretty typical. Recertification requires you to undertake at least 70 hours of professional development during the course of the next 5 years. So through a 5-year period, you have to acquire 70 hours of professional input, and the handbook explains what constitutes professional development. For example, attending a seminar for 1 hour will provide 1 hour towards your recertification, and you need 70 of them in total, gathered over 5 years. So it's pretty straightforward. That concludes this overview, and would be very pleased to take any questions.
Hey,
and as I said,
if anybody has, you guys can unmute, you can turn on your cameras. We'd love to see you and talk to you and ask, okay, we have a question. What if you are a professional IALD member? Okay, Rose, you want to?
So if you are a professional IALD member, that means your application is streamlined in 2 ways. 1, out of the 7 domains, you have to respond to 5 of the domains, and your application is reduced by $100. So I hope that answers the question if you're a professional member. That also applies to other professional associated organizations, lighting organizations that are affiliated with the CLD.
Okay, we have another question about, did we speak to the difference between CLD and LC? We did not talk about that, but just briefly, we can just say that the CLD is a portfolio-based sort of submission of competence. The LC is an exam, so it's just like going to take a standardized test. This is not a standardized test. The CLD is really about you choosing projects that you want to show examples of your work to answer the questions. So they're very different. They're very different, and Rose can add to that.
Also, I would like to add that the LC is North America based only. It doesn't include the country, the world. So it's really prevalent to the United States, Canada, and Mexico only.
Yeah, whereas the CLD is global. It's a global recognition, and I think that's important, especially if you are outside the country, but if you're also doing work in other countries besides your native country, then it is one of those. It's a much better certification for lighting design as opposed to an examination of your lighting technical knowledge.
Right, and it's good to hear comments that they're looking forward to applying soon. And Dawn and I are thrilled that there were about, I think, 80 plus attendees here. So we've given many presentations about the CLD. We've had speed domaining and other fun ways to get people involved. But to see 80 participants, we're thrilled because we have 80 CLDs. And if we doubled that, we're close to 200. So we appreciate your interest, and more so, we appreciate you just doing it and taking a stab at your CLD submission.
Okay.
Why do you have two last names? Well, because it's importante. So it's Allaire. I don't know why I have two last names. I'm sorry I read that comment.
Okay.
Where do we get the jerseys? Now, this is very important. Dawn and I will stand up and show our jerseys. I'm number 15. Go this way. So the jerseys are something we did on our own. It was Dawn's idea, and you get your own jersey based on whatever team you follow, because we're all going to be Team CLD. That's what we are now, but hopefully we're going to grow bigger. But the idea is that when you are certified, you get a number with your certification on your certificate, and we're up to 80. So we're looking to get the first 100 CLDs, and then you get your jersey and put your number on it.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, so we do have a question about the eligibility for senior and how do we define senior? So I think that would be you're in no matter what your company might call it or you call yourself, it really means that you have a lead role and a responsibility to the project. So we're looking that you're either making the decisions. So if you're an independent and single practitioner, then obviously you would be in a senior role. If you are in a group of a small group or a large group and you have influence in terms of making the decisions and designing the project, then that would also be considered to be a senior role. So I think it's going to vary depending on the role that you have in the project. And so we're looking for people that are really sort of leading the concept, leading the decisions, leading the team.
And also specific to project work that you submit for your application, it's ideal that you were part of the project from the concept preliminary phase all the way through construction, because that way you're demonstrating, all of the qualifications needed for the eligibility and the domains. So it's important that you see a project through its completion. Now, you don't have to do everything on that project. As we know, we don't all do our own CAD work, renderings, site visits, invoicing, photometric calculations, but you were very much involved in the decision-making and the design considerations of the project. So I hope that answers the question.
Okay.
Hi from Brazil. Hello.
Hi. Hello. Hello. We're really thrilled.
From California.
Rose, could you talk a little bit about how long it might take to put together the submission?
Well, David Becker answered it very well. And there are 7 domains. So if you're not a professional IALD member, then you would have to submit all 7 domains. And he said he tackled it 1 per night in a week's time. I did not do it that way because I did it over, let's see, I started in December and submitted in February. So I took time to organize, select my projects, get together my images and my exhibits, and remember that you do not need professional photography. You can use your own iPhone images. It's not an award submission. So it's important to know that you don't have to have professional, even you can use sketches. There's so many examples of exhibits if you look online at the handbook and suggestions, but specifically to complete the application, it's really on your own timeline. It took me 3 months because it happened to be that time of year, and it's at your own pace. So Dawn, how long did it take you to submit?
I started gathering, you have to get letters of attestation from the projects that you're going to use. So in other words, the architect might have to sign a letter, and basically it's a form letter that just says, yes, you were in fact on the team, and they can acknowledge that you were part of the team. So those letters, so I started accumulating those letters probably 4 or 5 months earlier when I started thinking about which projects I wanted to use. And then after I really honed in on the projects, I think I sat down and put all my exhibits together in about a month. And I did it all offline, wrote it in Word. I put all of my exhibits together in InDesign, and then so they would look neat and be organized. And so I think once I did that, then I signed up. There is a 6-month window that once you sign up, that you have 6 months to complete your application. So my recommendation is that you get the handbook and the supplement to the handbook. And then you get all your information together, put your stuff together, and then sign up, and then just upload it, and then you're done. Okay, because but the hardest thing is to start. It's very easy to put it off, and it's very easy for everyone to say, "Oh, I don't have time." Well, I'm alone. I'm alone in my office. Okay, this is the entire staff right here. Okay, this is my staff of 10. Okay, so I have to get everything done, and in addition to everything else I'm doing, I just feel like you can carve out time if it becomes a priority to you, and this was a high priority to me. So
okay, I'm going to jump in. There's a couple more questions. Thank you, Dawn.
Yeah.
Who reviews the applications, and how long does the evaluation take for final certification? So mature peers, lighting designers that have been doing this for many, many years, are the evaluators, if you will. And the evaluation process takes about, on average, 6 to 8 weeks to be safe. The projects presented for the application have to be recent ones, or could they be completed within 3 or 4 years? The answer is yes to both. They could be recent, and they can be up to 7 years. And also for 2 of the domains, they don't need to be completed projects. So I should know what those are. But we can look at the handbook and.
Well, science does not have to be completed. It could just be, you know, a design calculations, whatever you're using for science, and it doesn't necessarily have to be built. So that's one of them. And integration, I believe, is the other one.
Well, collaboration doesn't really require one, but so yes, and it is a blind review process. The applicants do not know who the reviewers do not know who the applicants are. It's a completely blind process. So it's very fair. And the website is cld.global for all of you that want to go there right now and download the handbook. It's very helpful.
Rosemarie, if I could just jump in, I just wanted to add on to about the review of your application. It's done by 3 separate reviewers. So you have 3 different people looking at them. And as long as you have 2 of the 3 agree in the various parts, then it's a pass. But it's not just one person reviewing the application. And at the end of this session, we'll post the link again.
Great.
Okay, another question is, how do we justify the cost of an application and the certification and all the effort that goes into it if the RFPs don't seem to require it? Just for myself, I will tell you that many RFPs I see don't even require a lighting designer. So I don't think that's a benchmark in terms of the value that I bring to the party. I believe that the value that the skills that we bring to projects outweighs what is in an RFP. Realizing that an RFP is written by people that are bureaucrats or working in, you know, for cities or school districts or whatever, they don't necessarily know what all the certifications might be. So I don't think that the benchmark is having an RFP request of CLD. I don't think that's, for me, that important. For me, it's important that I convey that my standard of practice has been certified and my abilities have been certified by my peers and by an organization that is worldwide. So Rose, do you want to add anything to that?
I would offer that it is an investment in your career. You know, it's an investment in yourself, and what value do you put on that? It doesn't matter what firm you work for, whether you work for yourself or you take the CLD wherever you go, and you can introduce yourself as a certified lighting designer. You'll always have that title. Right. So what percentage of applicants successfully achieve the certification? I would say most. It's a very small percentage that do not pass. So that's a very positive statistic.
Mm-hmm. I would also like to add that if you're considering it and you have questions about your projects or about your write-up or your exhibits, contact the CLD staff, and they will be happy to introduce you to a mentor in your time zone or in your area that would be able to help you review that and try to make sure that you're headed in the right direction if you have any questions. But I think most people understand really what's required.
It's really answering the questions. Mm-hmm. Certainly all of the eligibility requirements as well, but Dawn and I are happy to answer any of your questions offline or even, you know, provide more information. But thank you for your interest. This has been a great turnout.
And again, you do have to renew your certification every 5 years. That is a question that just came up. Maybe you came in late. Once you're certified, you have to renew every 5 years. That's only 14 hours a year. It's not a lot. So, you know, it really doesn't take a lot to recertify. So, let's see, are there questions we missed? Let's see, projects. No, we got that one. Okay.
The date of the booklet supplement, I believe, is 2019, since 2020 has been filled with COVID. We
Yeah.
We I believe the supplement handbook is 2019 is the date on there. So
yeah.
Are we good with time? I thought we were here until.
Yeah, no, yeah, we have another 8 minutes. We're good.
Oh.
Yeah, we're good.
I thought it was 11:15.
Yeah.
11:30. Okay.
No.
Great.
Oh no, it's 11:30. I think we have to 11:30. We're good. Well, which is in Pacific time. So whatever time zone you're in.
That's right.
It's about 8 more minutes. So if there are any other questions, something else that kind of comes up every now and then is people are, again, I want to stress the photography aspect and the exhibits. We love sketches. We love seeing how you integrate and how you draw details. We love to see just the thought process, the concept renderings and sketches. It does not have to be award-winning photography. It could be something you took on an iPhone. It could be a mock-up. It could be a photo of a mock-up. This is really about showing the process of what it is to be a lighting designer. And we do a lot of things, and we do a lot of different tasks over the course of delivering a final project. So I think it's really about showing that. It's not about saying, oh, I have the biggest, cathedral, or I have a big, multi-story, office building or whatever. It's not about scale. It's about thought. It's about thoughtful design. It's about bringing, that kind of creativity and the kind of integration into the process of being a lighting designer.
And it's also about your process. I use the example if, especially now that we're not having meetings live. If you had to send a client your project that you completed, how would you describe it? Well, you would send at length a narrative and, of course, specifications and plans, but you would explain your concepts. You would explain the ideas. And that's a lot of what this submission is. It's responding to, your contribution of ideas that demonstrate innovation, creativity, originality, how you integrated technical and aesthetic elements, how you responded to the environmental impact. Those are all aspects of what we do on a daily basis. And it's really just a matter of not only articulating it, but putting it in writing. And for me, that's why it took time, because I wanted to really massage my responses and my answers as the best they could be. And there's a question here about, can you resubmit one module or submit a module, or do you need to do the entire submission over? So if that is a correction that was based on a submission, then it's just that one domain you would have to respond to. You don't need to do the entire submission over. And if I misunderstood that question, I would say you have to submit everything in order to, submit your application online. You can do one at a time, of course, at your own pace. And like Dawn said, she did it all offline. And then you upload it, and then your last part of the process is paying. So it's not until you complete your application that you then, put in your payment information. So we really appreciate everyone's interest, and we hope that we can grow the CLD. We've been a certification since 2015, so we're in our 5th year, and we're really looking for critical mass. 80 is not critical mass, 800 is. So we'd love more applicants to submit, and today is the day to just do it.
And I would add to that is that if you're in a market where a lot of your competition is your own sales reps. If you're in a market where a lot of your competition is the architect doing it themselves, if you're in a market where you are really struggling to try to show the value that you bring to a project, then I think this is something that really should appeal to you, because this is a way to separate you from all of those other people. So when you go to your clients and you say, yes, but I'm a certified lighting designer, that, this rep is just trying to sell you product, there's really a very big difference between a certified lighting designer and the program is limited to people practicing lighting design as their primary job function. So if somebody is a sales rep, they're going to have a difficult time showing how they addressed the human experience or how they integrated something into the architecture. It's one thing to put together a fixture schedule in somebody's office and to sit there and just fill out numbers. That's one thing, but to actually integrate all of what we do into the architecture and to create and realize an entire project, that takes a lighting designer. And we hope that with this, we have inspired you all to jump on board and become a certified lighting designer, because that's how we're going to move forward together.
There's a question about the CLD belonging just to the USA, and that is not true. We have over, I wish Joe was here. I think we're up to 15, 16 countries. So I can read a few: Australia, Singapore, Spain, India,
Peru,
Canada, Italy, let's see, who else? Switzerland, United Arab Emirates, China, Brazil, Taiwan, Vietnam, Mexico. And yet in the USA, there's so many states that aren't represented in the CLD. I mean, who's from Minnesota? Who's from Iowa? We could go on and on and on. So be the first in your state, be the first in your country. Puerto Rico, I don't know that we have any CLDs from Puerto Rico. I don't believe that we do, but they're Germany, Croatia, Denmark, places you want to go to, let alone be a certified lighting designer in. So
it is global. It is global. So
very global.
Think about it. Think about your projects. Think about what you would use to talk about look at the domains, download the handbook, look at the domains and see, and organize your thoughts about how you can start this, because it's very, very important that we all do this.
Yes. We appreciate your interest. Thank you so much, and enjoy the conference.
Yeah. Thanks everybody for coming. We appreciate you.